Hey everybody, Jessica Henry Gray here. I'm really excited to have you back today to my YouTube channel. Today I'm out in the cold and I am going to be painting this beautiful scene. We got some fresh snow and it's actually pretty warm out. It's about 38. There's a wind, but I'm down here kind of underneath this, I don't know, there's a bridge right here, so it's kind of warm. Anyway, so I'm out of the wind and I'm going to show you today how to get out and plein air paint in the winter, and I think that you're going to enjoy this video. So sit back and grab something warm to drink and I will jump in. Hey everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am Jessica Henry Gray and I'm excited to be out here doing a plein air video. I know it's been a little while, but I've been busy in the studio with getting my holiday commissions done, so I am carving out some time to get some of this beautiful snow. And it's kind of a warm day, it's like 38, and I'm out of the wind, so thank goodness. I'm gonna get this scene here below me and I'll show you that here real quick. Want to play with the composition and get some of these values, and it's beautiful snow, and there's a couple of guys out here fishing. Maybe I can catch them in the scene too. And I'm going to show you a little bit before I get going on what are good ideas to take with you when you are out in the cold. All right, so you might notice I have fingerless gloves. When I need them, I'm going to put some some hand warmers in my gloves, and you can pick these up for really cheap, just hand warmers. You break the thing and then shove it inside your glove, and it really helps a lot to keep your feet or your hands warm. You can put them in your shoes too. I don't have that. I am standing on a cold rug down below me. It helps to keep my feet a little bit, like some of the cold from coming up through my shoes. All right, so I will show you some of the other things that I have going on down here too. And that's all I'm going to bring with me today. That's it. Got my paper towels and a few items. I'll show you what I have. So I don't bring very much with me when I come out to do plein air in the cold, because I want to keep this whole thing all about efficiency. So I'm going to set things here as I show you what I have. So I've got my tripod. I do bring an extra battery pack. If you're out in the cold and you have your phone, have an extra battery pack, because even if you're not filming or doing anything with it, the battery dies faster in the cold. So I do bring a backup so I can plug that in if I need to. I forgot my bungee cord today for my paper towels. I always put them on a bungee cord down below, but oh well, I'll tuck it under my arm and be just fine. I've got my palette here, my open box M, got my palette extension. Okay, that's all set up. And in this canister I have my paintbrushes. I've got a palette knife and some smaller brushes in here. Just simple 2, 4, and 6, and 8. These are in flat. This one's a bright. It's okay, it doesn't matter. Just use what you're comfortable with. I like a bristle. These are half synthetic, half natural. This one is a real natural bristle. You want your brushes to be stiffer, especially in the cold. They will have a tendency to get, your paint can get stiff. So you want to have a little bit stiffer brush. So I'll hang that up there. I've got my odorless mineral spirits, my little canister. I have a little dish for my linseed oil, and I'm going to need linseed oil today because, like I said, the paint gets stiff, and a little linseed oil will help make it run a little more smoother. So now, before I left the house, knowing it was going to be cold, I put all my paints in my pill sorter. This is equipped with Velcro on this side, which I've screwed into place. And I have Velcro tips on the inside of my palette box here. You can see those as well. So this just fits like that. Super easy. And I already put my paints in there. So I have some extra tubes of paint that I thought I might need just in case I run out. Colors I use all the time. So now I'll put a little bit of linseed oil in here, and I'll bring you up a little closer and show you what I've got. Right. This is an 8x8 square. I'm going to work on this today. Masonite, just gesso. First thing I'm going to do is begin with a thumbnail sketch of my scene. And I've got a square here, so I'm going to be working out an interesting composition that way. Now the reason that I have these fingerless gloves is so that I can either fold this back and have access to controlling my paintbrush with my fingers, or if I get cold, I can cover up my fingertips and just work that way. No big deal. But then I drop stuff, so. Those cold yet? And my hands aren't cold yet, so I haven't put my hand warmers in, so I'm fine with that. All right, so I know I'm going to be working with a square. You can start out with drawing the square first, or start out with sketching the scene and then establishing your boundaries. I'm going to show you both ways. So I like this bank over here, how it comes down and around, curves and goes back this way. Always find what you like first about a scene. It helps you in establishing what it is that you really want to paint, what's important to you. Okay, so I like this S curve coming in. I like the snow patch right here. I like the value of the water being a little bit different. This, I'm not sure that this is really contributing, being cut across the scene like that. I think what I'm going to do is kind of focus on this area more than any of this. So let me just try that sketch again. So if I work on the way that the snow banks come down, and we've got some light into this patch in here. This is all in shadow, a nice strong dark value in here. I think that that will direct my focus to what's happening in the water down in here, and I can get some more of this snow in here, which is really what I wanted to do today anyway, that beautiful snow. So then I'll get some of this snowbank kind of island thing in the middle, and then I'll just allow this to be going off the canvas. Yeah, I think that that's going to be stronger. This will mostly be middle tone with some highlights on here, just really directing the eye back around this way. Okay, so I'm going to go with that. Okay, so I'm going to tone the canvas so that I already have something of a middle tone underway. Again, everything I do is with the purpose of enhancing efficiency. Oh, for colors, I have titanium white, cad yellow medium, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, phthalo green, and alizarin crimson. I'm not sure I'll use much of the phthalo green today, but it's just part of my arsenal. But there's really nothing that we can use it for today. Okay, now I'm going to wipe this off. There's my overall design. Now I'm going to put in my value extremes. So right in here, when I squint down at the seam, this is my darkest darks. Now I want to be careful because as they recede back here, they get lighter. Water line. Now these darker accents here that I'm placing around the shoreline help to bring the viewer in through the painting. They provide sort of a lead-in compositionally to draw you back into the painting, as well as on the other side, a little bit of accents along the shore. The rest of this I'm going to do in voiceover back in the studio. Okay, so with my darker accents in place, I'm ready to move forward. I know that there's going to be a few spots in the composition that have the bright white light. So I want to start out with my background. I'm mixing up a neutral brownish gray, a little bit of blue in that for the shadows. This is not going to be my most brilliant blue shadow in the snow, but I'm starting with sort of just that neutral base, sort of a middle tone gray. It is on the cooler tone, so there's a little bit more blue and white in it. And then I'm just working my way back through the composition. When you have a scene like this with a slope going down to water, and there's brush and shrub and twigs and sticks and all kinds of things back in there, I'm squinting down and I'm taking the farthest away values first. The grays and tans, the colors you don't really notice right away. Over and above all that, I'm going to start building up the layers of that slope. So for a while in the progress of this painting, it just sort of has a sense of non-objective. It's really difficult to really kind of tell what's going on. But I do have my sketch and I'm aware of where I'm going to be going with it, which is one of the main reasons why we do a thumbnail sketch, because you know in your head what your target is. Okay, so what I'm doing is, as far as the colors that I'm using, it's just varying shades of the, sometimes I'll add a little bit more burnt sienna, sometimes I'll add a little bit more blue and white. Occasionally I'll put in a little bit more of the yellow ochre where I want a little bit of warmth. When I squinted down at that, there were some fall leaves still stuck to some of the bushes and things, so I do add some more ochre and the sienna later to that. So working my way through the shadows in the foreground, I have a little bit more of the blue and white up front, and I'm starting to sculpt out the banks on the side of the river and the snow, the water. Whatever I do in the background, I want to use those colors in the water. And so I'm just taking what is existing on my brush and I'm working that into the water where I see it in the movement of the river. Waters can be tricky because it is always moving, but if you squint down at it, I cannot underscore enough how important it is to squint. You see the broad colors and the general values when you squint. It takes out all the detail and extra information and just boils down the simplicity of the scene. So I'm working in the water. I started with the reflections in the water going vertically in the background. And then the water that's up close to me, I'm using more horizontal brush strokes to suggest the way that I saw the color underneath the top surface of the water. And to me, it appeared horizontal as I was working on the water. Later, I will drizzle over the highlights on the surface of the water, kind of directing the eye toward the back of the picture and using brush strokes to suggest that direction. And then it just has that really interesting effect of being shines on the water. All right, so at this point I am taking a little bit of alizarin crimson and blue and just getting in some of the darker shadows. I like using violet, like a deep purple, for some winter shadows in the banks. It just provides a nice contrast to the brilliant yellow-white of the snow. And I'm also putting it in a few places in the water as I see darker shadows from the trees being cast across the surface of the water. That area back in here where there's all the dark of the banks and then the crystal clear water that I could see, that was a real area of focal point for me in this painting. I loved how the water had that transparent effect right there. I wasn't getting very much of the glow and the highlights from the sky on it. So I played with a little bit more of the ochre and sienna in the depths of the water. So a little bit more of the white and blue. I'm now going to come back up through the shadows in the background with more of that snow color shadow that I was describing earlier. I have sort of that blah mundane sense of where the values have their just interesting forms and shapes. Now I'm coming in with a little bit more of a concrete idea of the banks of the snow and really working that paint into the brush. And getting it into, I love this flat brush. It's a bright, and it has just a really nice sharp edge. And so I'm working those blue and white, almost periwinkle shadows into some of the sculpture of the sloping land as it comes down to the water. And it's easy to overdo this because you see this really pretty blue-white color. So you have to be very selective about the places where you put those. Occasionally I put the camera back so that you can see the kind of the scene that I'm looking at and some of those blues. And of course the camera doesn't pick every color up accurately, which is why we plein air paint. You learn to train your eye to see those values and colors more accurately than what a camera can represent. And that is always an unfortunate side effect of doing videos and taking pictures of your art, is it's just you never get it accurate, but you do the best you can. So now I'm working in here at taking just the chiseled corner of my brush and again laying out the topography of that hill back there. Now I'm taking some white and a little bit of cad yellow and gently painting the two colors together. This is going to start to give me some of the highlights of the snow in the background as the sun is peeking through some of the trees and just hitting in a few places. Again, this is an area where you can get excited about the effect and put it in too many places. So just do a couple strokes and then step back and look at it. Live with it for a few minutes. See if you need more. Maybe you don't. Ask yourself, to what end are you putting this color or that color? What is the effect? Because your painting is what's going to be lasting, and this is what needs to compositionally hold together. And be always cognizant of what it is that you want the viewer to do and where you want them to go and what you want them to look at and for how long. Yes, you can control all of those things when you are painting a scene. And in fact, I'm going to be talking a lot more about that in some of my upcoming workshops about composition and leading the viewer in and telling them where to go and how long to stay and how we can use that to our advantage in creating beautiful works of art. So I'm taking some of that blue that I had and just in gentle strokes that define the lay of the land. So the slopes come down to the water and they blanket over the darks of the cliffs, those little banks. And always using my brushstroke to define that form. That will give you the sense of just the way that the land is working and how the snow has fallen. So I'm using those brushstrokes to my advantage. And as I'm working that passage back there where the bank comes down to the river, I can look at it and see that it's a sharp edge, but I don't want to paint it as sharp of an edge as I see it because I want the viewer to stay in this area. This is the prime center of interest, and the background is a nice place to lead in and lead out. But if I put a sharp edge back there, then we go look back there. So you want to keep the viewer always focused in an area where you decide is your focal area, your center of interest. And the other side of the bank is going to help me with that too, kind of steering the viewer into that area. And this foreground is just a really nice introduction saying, come on in, look around. So I want this to be rich and beautiful. Remember too, everything up close to the viewer is going to be thicker, brighter, richer, stronger colors, thicker paint, greater contrast. And then as it leads us back to the background, we go from more up front to less in the background. Less brush strokes, less contrast, thinner paint, and so forth. So I'm getting together my white, and I obviously am working on the whites of the snow, and I don't use just straight white out of the tube. There is color still in my brush, and the challenge of working in the snow, of course, is it gets cold, and so the paint tends to get stiff. And as I mentioned earlier, I just used linseed oil to help me thin the paint out. That's all you need. You don't need that much. I wouldn't recommend using other mediums to help soften the paint when really linseed oil is what your paint is made from, and that's all you need. So the snow, as it comes down to the water over there, is a key element in this composition, and I wanted it to almost have that cat paw-like feeling as it holds the water, holds the viewer. You know, it just reminded me of a cat's paw, and the way that the light was hitting it. I'm using my brush strokes to define that form. Don't be afraid to go bold. Lay down a piece of paint. If it's wrong, you can paint over it or scrape it off. But it just has such a nice feeling of blanketed, wet, heavy snow or light, fluffy snow when you are assertive with your brush strokes. It just has a greater sense of impact when you just lay down that solid sheet of snow and that white. Well, it's actually white and cadmium yellow. A little bit of cadmium yellow, remember that's your sunlight color, that's your sunshine. You put cadmium yellow in your greens and all of a sudden the sun looks like it's hitting it. Cadmium yellow in your white and just a teeny bit and it looks like sunshine hitting it, whether it's a white of a building or white of snow. And I know that my canvas here is slightly cast in shadow, so you're not going to get the full spectrum of the values, but I always show a picture of it at the end so you can see a little better of where I was going with things. Now the reflection back there in the water, it's a little darker than what it is being reflected into. So as whatever you see in the water's reflection is always going to be a little bit darker than what it is actually reflecting. And so I'm just taking some of the little lighter gray, leaving a dark line, just that subtle little dark accent, separating the land from the water, and then I just drag straight down the item that's being reflected, whether it's a bank or a tree. A little bit of blue into that. I want to come back through now and just pull out a few of the shadows as they sort of got lost or got mushy or whatever. You can see it starting to take form and take shape of snow, land, and water, and you'll see that now start to develop throughout the painting. Here again is an example of using my brush strokes to help define the form. A little bit of blue and white, and I work that into the brush, and I just come through here now and help to define where the sculpted snow of the near snowbanks, how they're looking and what sort of form and shape they have. All right, so I know it's a little hard to see here, so I'll describe what I'm doing. A little ultramarine blue and burnt sienna to get a nice strong dark. A little bit of alizarin crimson into this, but I'm working on getting a really strong dark. What happens is, as you're working, those dark accents that you put down at the beginning tend to get a little bit lost. So to pull those back out again, I want to create a nice, clean, sharp dark, a little bit of linseed oil into that, and I'm gonna hit those accents up a little bit more pronounced, just to make sure that they are in existence and doing their function as part of the composition. And the water line on rocks really help to make them feel like they're wet and sitting in water. And there were a few darker accent passages in the background that were there, but it got a little lost, and so I'm putting those back in. And in fact, I like that those are there. They help provide sort of a backdrop that is almost comforting, like a darker value that holds the viewer into the area where the focal point is. Getting a little smaller brush, this is a size 2 now. I'm going to work on just developing some of these shadows in the focal area a little bit more. Given that this is the center of interest, I want this to be as good as I can make it in this context here while I'm plein air painting. So I'm softening some of the banks as they come around, like heavy snow slipping into shadows. The brush itself is kind of scraggly, and I like that because in this case, it just sort of provides a rough flavor as the snow maybe hits some of the shadows and some of the rocks and things in there, and has an interesting effect. I like that. A little bit of white, a little bit of yellow. I'm now going to come back through and hit those highlights really intense. So now I'm reaching that point in the painting where I'm just going to hit those final notes. One thing to point out in painting snow is that more white doesn't make it look like snow. Just adding more white, even though we look at snow, we know it's white, that's not gonna make it have the appearance of snow. You have to make sure to add the colors in the shadows, those blues and violets, but also be aware that snow is made up of so many different colors. If you look at a Monet up close of his winter scenes, you'll see pinks and, of course, light yellows, some light blues right in the sunlight of the snow. So I want to encourage you to play with some of those more impressionistic flavors in painting snow. It makes it almost opalescent. It's a beautiful effect. All right, so I moved the camera back here so you can see some of the colors in the snow. Again, this isn't entirely accurate, but you get the feel for how blue the shadows are and how yellow-white the sunlight is on the snow, and how it just kind of has that gentle sloping down to the water. I really wanted to point that out and watch your brush strokes. as you're painting that effect. So I'm painting some darker trees now. These are not my darkest darks, because when I look at the scene out in front of me, the darkest darks again were the dark values of the banks. The trees themselves were having sort of an ambient light wrapping around them. And most often in your composition, your darks are going to be your vertical element because the light is hitting it less. But in the context where you have snow is creating bounced light up into the trees. So in this scene, the darkest darks, of course, are going to be the banks, and where the light is absolutely absent from hitting it. So the trees, typically, which would be your darkest value, are now almost a middle tone, darker middle tone. So they're just getting put in place. They have to be strong enough, however, to indicate that they are the result of all these shadows and stripes across my scene. When you begin a painting with a concept, and in this case my concept was to really celebrate that bank and the water in there, you are able to better gauge the effects and the degree to which you add your detail. So in this case, there were lots of detail. There was a lot of detail on the trees and bushes, but that wasn't what the painting was about. I needed to have them suggested in my composition, but not focused on. So I wanted the trees to be more vague, more something we feel rather than observe, because again, my focus was on the bank and the snow and the water, less on the trees. So instead of taking the time to draw, a million little branches and twigs and sticks and crusty snow on the trees, that wasn't important, and that wasn't what it was about. They had to be there, but not screaming for attention. So at this point now, I'm going back through with some of that yellow ochre that I'd mentioned at the beginning of this, and just suggesting some bushes and leaves. It added a nice layer of warmth to the whole painting. I'm taking my palette knife and scraping in a few twigs just to help set back the bank and provide a little bit more information. Now I wanted to call your attention to the end of this video. I have a short highlight of all of my plein air workshops that I'm offering this year. I'm excited to introduce these to you, and I hope that you take the time and just check out the video. And I do hope to see you at one of them. Just as a quick note here, I'm adding the shines on the water surface, using those slight horizontal directional brushstrokes, leading you back into the painting. All right, well that wraps us up. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And be sure to check out all the links below. I think you're gonna enjoy what you see down there. I've got some fantastic workshops lined up for this year. And take a look at those, and I hope to see you guys in my newsletter or my blog at some point. All right, have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. All right, bye-bye. Join me in Florida for 4 days of fantastic plein air painting in one of the most beautiful beaches in Florida. Aqua turquoise waters, white sugary sand beaches, perfect temperature. It is the prime location for plein air painting. Painting on these silky white sand beaches is just such a privilege and a treat. Just mastering the color in that water is it's a joy, and I want to encourage you to sign up. We've got a few spots still left for the workshop this year in April. We talk about values and composition in your plein air painting. Of course, this is an in-person workshop. This workshop was in 2019, and but as far as 2021 goes, we will be practicing more social distancing. Everybody enjoyed it. It was a evening and just had a great time. Join me in Charleston, South Carolina, plein air painting workshop. Very excited to paint in this one of the most beautiful cities in the entire nation. Rich in history, Charleston is full of color, energy, and a rare vitality. 3 days of plein air painting capturing the city, land, and seascapes. I am so excited for this workshop. It is going to be a fantastic 3 days of painting in person. And look at the color of this. It's absolutely beautiful city. We're going to enjoy painting the beautiful beaches as well as the colorful cities. My workshops are fun, and we're going to keep it engaged in a lot of energy. We keep very safe in the workshops as well. In this season of COVID, everybody's wearing masks as it's appropriate, but we are also outside, and that helps with stopping the spread. So I hope that you get to enjoy this one and look over it, and I hope to see you in South Carolina. Listed in the top 100 most beautiful beaches in the world by National Geographic, Cannon Beach is a joy to plein air paint. The Oregon beaches truly are one of my most favorite beaches in the world. The water is a stunning aqua, deep sapphire, velvety blue. It's just unlike anywhere else in the world, with massive rocks and starfish, crashing waves. There's an endless supply of things to paint. And we had a wonderful time painting there this last October. We kept very safe, COVID-free. This is the group that joined us. We had a fantastic time, and this is a wonderful opportunity to just study how to plein air paint. It's soothing and relaxing, listening to the ocean waves while painting. Just sort of takes all your cares and washes them right back out to the sea. It's just absolutely breathtaking, peaceful. Ancient forests, mysterious. They have this intrigue that you don't find anywhere else in this country. Majestic beaches, soaring cliffs, makes Oregon a fascinating must on any plein air painter's list. And everywhere you look is somewhere fantastic to paint. So I hope that you take a look at this one, follow the link for more information. I would love to meet you in Oregon this coming year. Join me this coming up September to do a plein air workshop in beautiful Ohio. This is Mansfield at Kingwood Park, and we painted these fountains and beautiful gardens and just had a wonderful group. And this year we're going to be adding a third day to the workshop. There's so much to see and so much to paint. We had a fabulous time just capturing the light and the early fall colors. And our primary focus was on establishing the foundations of plein air painting. I hope to see you at my Ohio workshop this fall. Throughout the course of our artistic journeys, we often have hundreds, if not thousands, of photographs of beautiful landscapes. And in this workshop, I want to teach you how to take those photos and turn them into beautiful landscape paintings. This is an online class, and it is a 4-part session, and we will go over painting from photos. I have 4 paintings that I will be doing a demo each day in the class. And in this painting, I will show you how to break down a composition from your photo. And if you have a plein air study, we can go over that, how to incorporate that into your painting in the studio, and then how to just work out the final result from your photo using the challenges that come with working from photos, values, color, distortions, and so forth. So in this class, I will demonstrate painting water, painting trees. I'll demonstrate painting certain lighting effects that we often try to get in our paintings. And I'll also paint some sort of building or housing structure. I hope you can join me in this very informative online workshop later this year. This year is full, but we are taking reservations for our workshop next year, 2022. We are confirming and finalizing a date. It will be in the summer of 2022, And this is exactly the format that it will be in for that year. This year, we're going to be touring France. Southern France will be in these beautiful areas where I am painting at Les Vieux Cavants, and it is a 10-day workshop, all included except for your flight and a couple of meals. All of the rest of your meals and your lodging and your tuition are all covered in this workshop. We will be in the most stunning place here in the world as far as I'm concerned. It is gorgeous and I cannot wait. I hope that you can join me for 2022 to paint in these medieval villages and just gorgeous, gorgeous areas to paint. I am also adding as a special bonus a 3-day trip to Paris. For more information on that, check out my links below on my workshop this year. I wish you the very best in your artistic endeavors, and I do hope our paths cross at some time. Thank you all for your support, and have a so much for listening, and have a wonderful week, and I will see you tomorrow when I put my new video up. Okay, bye-bye.